Greetings and welcome to the latest edition of the Entheogenic Evolution Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Martin, and I'm very happy to have you with me today. This week's episode is going to be the last interview that I publish for 2024, and it is a great one. My guest is Julio Rivera, and he offers a program in Jamaica taking super heroic doses of mushrooms and providing what he calls parasite extraction. And I know that sounds rather exotic, but ultimately it's an energetic thing. And even though it might sound like this is something that I might take issue with, given my stances on beings and entities and things like that, you'll find in this conversation that Julio and I actually agree with pretty much everything he is presenting, and we have a very lively conversation on this topic. We'll be getting to that in just a minute, but of course, first, a few announcements. I do want to thank Eric and Cohen, who has signed up as new supporting patrons over at my Patreon page, patreon.com/MartinWBall. Thank you very much, Eric and Cohen, and welcome to the club. It's nice to have you over there at my Patreon page. And speaking of my Patreon page, I have a link over there for anyone who might be interested. Coming up this next year in 2025, I am personally going to be teaching a course with the Mindscape Psychedelic Institute that is exclusively on the topic of 5-MeO-DMT integration. This is a course that I've been putting together over the recent weeks that is specifically designed for individuals who want to serve as 5-MeO-DMT integration specialists. This is a one-of-a-kind course. As far as I know, there are no other courses out there that are being taught by a live professor, that would be me, who literally wrote the book on the subject. My book from earlier this year, 5-MeO-DMT Integration, will be one of the main readings for the class, and as I argue in the book, that standard approaches to psychedelic integration often don't really work or apply well to the 5-MeO-DMT experience because 5-MeO-DMT is so uniquely unique, and you need a special set of skills, education, and tools to help people integrate this. So I put together this 9-week course specifically on this topic to take people all the way through from the theoretical foundations of the entheological paradigm, how the human energetic system works, and also how the human ego works and how it interfaces with the energy of 5-MeO-DMT, the multitude of unique presentations that happen within the 5-MeO-DMT experience and how you help people understand them and process them and work with them, dealing with reactivations and other after effects. This is going to be a top-level class. I'm super excited about it, and I've pretty much got it all lined up. And where we're at the moment with Mindscape Psychedelic Institute is that if you would like to get on the mailing list for this course and receive more information about it, that I have a link over at my Patreon page. It's a long URL with a bunch of letters and numbers, so I'm not going to say it here in the podcast. Just swing by patreon.com/MartinWBall, and that will give you the link. And you can also just email me at martinwball@gmail.com, and I can send you the link, and that'll take you to the landing page. You can enter your name and your email, then you'll get more information about that. And as soon as we officially launch the class, if you want, then you can go and sign up. Just to tell you a little bit more about it, it's going to be happening on Wednesday afternoons from 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific time. That's my time zone. And it's going to start on February 26th. So it's coming up in just a couple of months now. And the standard fee for the class is going to be $2,500, but I'm also making it available at a discount of $2,000 for anyone who is a current or former student with Mindscape Psychedelic Institute. So, for example, any of my students who are currently in the facilitator training program for 5-MeO-DMT, in which I'm also teaching at Mindscape, they get $500 off if they want to come in for this integration course. So I will have more to say about that in the coming weeks. Again, I'm super excited about this. It's limited to only 15 people. So if you want to get on that list, go ahead and link on over to Patreon and use the link that I provide there to get your name in. Of course, the big news here for the podcast is that starting January 1st, the Entheogenic Evolution podcast is going to be officially 17 years old. Been doing this since 2008, January of 2008. And to kick us off for the new year, I've got a great interview with the team from Emerald Valley Institute, which is a psilocybin facilitator training school in Eugene, Oregon. And it just felt like a real kind of landmark interview, given that I started this podcast long before there was even whispers of legalizing use of psilocybin in sessions here in Oregon. And I was the person who first organized a public talk for Tom and Cherie Eckert in 2015 when they launched the Psilocybin Services Initiative program, where they were going out and talking about why they wanted to legalize it and what framework they saw for that in the state of Oregon. And so what better way to celebrate the 17th birthday of the Entheogenic Evolution podcast to bring in this team from Emerald Valley Institute. So looking forward to bringing you that in the very beginning of January. Of course, going to still be sharing chapters from the audiobook of The Fate of Marani in between interviews, and there's still lots more to come in what is going to be the 18th year of this podcast. Yes, the Entheogenic Evolution podcast is almost an adult. We're getting there. Anyway, I think that's all that I have to say for today. Oh, of course, if you want help integrating your 5-MeO-DMT experience from a non-dual and energetic perspective, I do offer 30, 60, and 90-minute calls. And just reach out at martinwball@gmail.com or stop by at nondualentheogenicintegration.com if you want more info. Let's go ahead and jump into this conversation with Julio Rivera. His website is www.shape-my.life, and a link will be provided in the podcast show notes. And let's go ahead and let's get into it, talking about taking 10 grams of mushrooms in Jamaica and just what it is all about. Okay, so I am welcoming on to the Entheogenic Evolution podcast today, author and retreat runner, I'm not quite sure what the word would be, retreat facilitator, maybe, Jules Rivers, which was the anglicized version of his name, also Julio Rivera. So we want to welcome Jules and Julio, one and the same person, here to the Entheogenic Evolution podcast. Welcome to the show, Jules.
Thank you for having me. Yes, as a good clarification, yes, my given name, I'm Puerto Rican and raised over there and living in the United States for the last 20 years now. Yeah, my pen name for my books is Jules Rivers, Jules Henry Rivers. Sounds very British, but it's good for the marketing. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, so you were brought to my attention that I got an email from someone that I've had some contact with over the years and said that you are now running a program that goes by the acronym of SHAPE. And let me just see if I can get this right. We have Spiritual Healing by Astral Parasites Extraction. And this is a particular model of psilocybin mushroom retreat using heroic and maybe even super heroic doses in combination with what is described as Tibetan Buddhist entity extraction for profound healing. And there's even, you have to apply to even go to a retreat like this. And I've got your little brochure about it, and I've got the website here, and it sounded interesting. And the person who put us in contact with each other said, maybe you want to have Julio on your show. And I said, well, sure, why not? So here we are. Yeah. So Julio, let's start with where I generally like to start with guests, is by inviting them to kind of share a little bit about themselves, about their own journey into working with entheogenic medicines, and then we will eventually move into talking about the SHAPE program and about the retreat and the center, and possibly also this ayahuasca manifesto that you have shared with me. But I'd like to start at the personal level of getting to know who you are, how you came into this line of work and interest, and what your own experiences have been that have been impactful for you within your own life and your own personal healing or transformation.
Right. Good. Well, that's fine. I am a retired back executive that turned into ayahuasca after having my first ayahuasca experience in 1998. So it was like 26 years ago. I mean, I was a regular college student when I experienced at the end of my senior year in my high school. I experienced my first marijuana cigarette, my first joint. Blew my mind. I mean, I was a student. I was celebrating. Okay, I'm going to college now. All the SATs were done. Let's have some fun now. Let's smoke my first joint, and boom, it changed my perception of reality. I thought that reality was a fixed stuff that is box. I mean, very three-dimensional thing of reality. And I say, wow, how a chemical substance can change the perception of my reality. So what is the reality? So I started a quest for what it's all about. And I started experimenting with psychedelics in college. I did LSD, I did the mushrooms in little amounts, and experimented. Been there, done that. At the end of the day, none of them hit me in a way that was like continue to doing that. So I've been there, done that, got married, got in my banking career, and I read one time in 1988 in a science section of the New York Times, the Sunday the Sunday newspaper was very thick, like 3-inch thick.
Yeah.
I used to buy that one from time to time, and in this science section, I read about ayahuasca for the first time. I said, well, I have to try this one time because it said that it's brewed from the Amazon, that indigenous people learn about the past, the present, and the future. And I said, the future? I mean, a chemically induced vision of the future? I have to try this one day. And it happened. It happened 10 years later, 1998. A friend of mine called me saying, there is a shaman from the Amazon in Puerto Rico doing ceremonies. Are you interested? Of course, I'm looking forward to it. So I had my first ayahuasca experience in the hands of Jose Campos, which turned out to be world-renowned later on, being in jail a couple of times in a couple of countries for importing ayahuasca in the airport. Very close friend of mine. I became his apprentice for 10 years. Traveled to Peru many times, and experienced ayahuasca profoundly with him in the jungle setting, in the retreat that he had then, and he still has in the Peruvian Amazon. So in 2008, so for 10 years, I was drinking ayahuasca, and then by 2005, I complained because I invited him to Puerto Rico to do ceremonies every year. So he went every summer. I organized groups for him, and I organized groups to bring to Peru, traveling and have these retreats with him. And we became very close. In 2005, I gave him some complaints about, listen, this ayahuasca thing is changing my life. I need to do this more frequently. Once a year is not enough. And he looked at me and said, okay, you're ready. Ready for what? So every time he came, he took the leftover of his ayahuasca and took it back to Peru after his visit. This time he said, here you go. This is your bottle now. Drink from here. You're ready to drink by yourself, and I trust you. Wow, thank you, Don Jose. So I began drinking frequently from that bottle for 3 years. In December 31st, it's unforgettable, of 2007, I have this incredible ayahuasca experience that it was a call from Mother Ayahuasca, or from the spirits of the plant, or from my higher self, or from there's something big there out there that is hard to define, that gave me this calling to serve ayahuasca to others. It was my time. How am I going to do that? I'm a bank executive. I've always did this secretly. I was afraid of being fired from my bank because of doing drugs. So one thing led to the other, and that year was the year of the mortgage crisis in the banking business in 2008, and that was exactly my line of business. I was a bank executive in construction financing. That suddenly the construction stopped completely that year, and I realized that my career was reaching the end. I was overpaid and underutilized, and I knew it was a matter of time before I was laid off. And I negotiated the package smartly. My friends didn't do that, and they were fired without any dollar. I got some money, and I left. So I began doing ayahuasca ceremonies. And by that time, I moved to Florida, in Miami, where I still live. And when a spiritual leader from Florida embraced me into doing ayahuasca ceremonies once a month in her healing center. It was a Reiki healing center in Florida. Elizabeth was her name. She passed recently due to COVID. God bless her. And she gave me the opportunity and the venue and the participants. She has a huge huge following, and she provided these groups once a month for me. I just came, did my thing, leave. And it was my school, my practice again with Don Jose Campos, traveling there every year. I polished my skills. And then another one big thing that happened was in 2011 in the jungle, where the spirit of ayahuasca again, or I don't know what to call it again, told me that I need to write this book for her, for the ayahuasca. It was the ayahuasca manifesto. So it was like a channeling thing. I started receiving information. I took like a week, like sparkling topics that I have to talk about. And I organized like this outline. And then I started writing, receiving intuitively the information that I'm going to write. It's like a little 50-page booklet about how ayahuasca should be served, how ayahuasca is supposed to be, and the mission of ayahuasca in the planet, which is the expansion and coming out of the Amazon and cover planet with awareness and being planted everywhere, every tropical place that she can grow and become a well-known plant everywhere. So that's happening. I published that free. It was anonymous because I didn't have the right or the merit to put my name in this book because it was not me, basically. So and it was free of copyright, so you can publish in part, in full. It's free book, and it's viral now. It's translated in 8 languages, and it's all over the planet as well. I'm very pleased to have that, to see that growing, unfolding for the last 13, 14 years, the Ayahuasca Manifesto. So that's basically how it all started. Then I got married, my second marriage, and then began a church, Ayahuasca Church, in 2016, sorry. And there was a Brazilian Ayahuasca Church to do, practice ayahuasca in the United States legally. And I ended that part of my life recently, and I moved into the psilocybin, which was also called me, and it was a transition into psilocybin, but not leaving behind ayahuasca. I still do private ayahuasca ceremonies for people that needs to go deep into their issues that they want to address. And but I'm now expanding with a couple of friends that I've met along the way with the psilocybin and these retreats. So that's basically, in a nutshell, my path.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. Let me just ask you a couple of follow-up questions. So first, with serving ayahuasca in Florida, that's obviously, it's a big break from being a banker who felt like had to keep it secret, but now you become a facilitator in Florida. How did you feel about the legal status of ayahuasca at that time and being a facilitator? This is just something I'm always interested in asking people about, because obviously a lot of people do this work underground because they're passionate about it and they believe in it, but it's a risky area to be in. So how did you feel about that at the time, and how did you kind of reconcile that with kind of that professional life you had before?
Sure. Well, the beginning was scary because my fear was about being fired from the bank, which is my main source of income. I was doing very well. I was the kind of guy we had before ayahuasca, I had my sports car and golf club and all this banker stuff. I was living an empty life, very materialistic. So ayahuasca changed everything. So by 2008, when I started facilitating, it was the golden era of ayahuasca because law enforcement was not that aware or not paying attention to it. But unfortunately, over the years, it has been changing. This has been growing in the United States. I heard that on any weekend there's 50, 60 ceremonies in California, the United States, somewhere every weekend. So it popularized a lot. And over the years, I saw the restrictions of law enforcement with this. So I'll be very careful. But at the beginning, it was like a freewheeling. I was receiving my bottles of ayahuasca from my teacher shaman by mail. I received everything. I was bringing 10 bottles of ayahuasca in my bags, flying from Lima to Florida. Freshly cooked with my teacher shaman, smashing and cooking for days and days and bottling this and blessing ayahuasca with this, innocent heart of helping people and packing all these 10 bottles in my bags. And I'm going through immigration very relaxed, and it was okay. What is that? No, this is some bottles for something to help for your stomach. Okay, move on. And so those were the days, that everything was fine. But over the years, they start tightening. I think the strategy of the law enforcement with ayahuasca is not more like attacking or arresting or going after the people that practice that in the United States, but basically closing the source of the ayahuasca because you cannot grow ayahuasca effectively only in Hawaii or maybe Florida. But it's not like you will be unable to produce massive amounts of ayahuasca with ayahuasca plantations in the United States. That's not going to happen. So if you want to cut off the practice of ayahuasca in the United States, you just cut off the supply line.
Yeah.
And the supply line is the U.S. mail. The supply line is the airports. And they have tightened the screws there. There's cases in court. The now famous, the Eagle and the Condor Church, that from New Mexico. My dear friend Joe Tafur filed a lawsuit against the government for confiscating their bottles, and they've reached an agreement. They now have the status to import legally ayahuasca from South America, but you have to sue the government for that. Yeah. So you have to have the courage and the money and to do it. But otherwise, they're not going to import ayahuasca easily. And so now it's more like contraband. Now it's a risky business because I seen people arrested in the airports, 2-3 bottles of ayahuasca. I don't follow this closely because of obvious reasons. But I stopped importing ayahuasca myself or by mail. And I try to help people that get in trouble, referring them to the right attorneys, and I'm trying to avoid going to jail for this. I mean, it's very unfair to go to jail for ayahuasca, but your intention it's not criminal, it's not becoming a millionaire, it's not like any kind of drug. It's basically helping people and connecting and trying to be a better person and become more whole spiritually. So I try to assist them in any way I can. And most of them, I think all of them, they get probation or social work hours, and I haven't seen anyone going to jail for years for ayahuasca specifically. Yeah. But it's scary and you have to be very careful. So I'm very careful about that.
Yeah. So as you've mentioned, one of the ways that people have dealt with the legal status is through the use of entheogenic churches, like you mentioned Joe Tafur's church, and you mentioned your own in Florida, and you said that there was a Brazilian church. I'm curious, was that part of the Santo Daime or the União do Vegetal?
This was a offspring of the Vegetal So there's dissident movements in Brazil from the União do Vegetal, churches that run off from União do Vegetal, but they continue practicing the rituals of the UDV, but they're not officially UDV. So there was a church of those that I joined and negotiated a branch until recently. I left that church. The other people are doing that now. So I left the church after 6 years, so 7 years doing it. But it was a Brazilian UDV church, but not the official UDV that is formally established and approved in the United States. It was like an offspring of UDV, following the UDV protocols.
Yeah. So in establishing that, did you go through the whole registration process, do the paperwork, hire the lawyers, and do all of that work so that you can gain that legal recognition, or was it still more of something that was unofficial at that level?
Well, it was unofficial in that sense, but we have run the church as the UDV runs the church. So because the UDV, the formal UDV, had this written agreement with the DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration, and they agreed on these protocols and rules, how to run it, how to carry inventory, how to register the amount of ayahuasca it drinks in each ceremony, and all that. So we follow that as we were. So in case we were intervened or asked about what we're doing, here it is. I mean, spreadsheets, everything, forms, as UDV, but not officially. So we were ready to knock the door of the DEA for approval all the time. We were ready all the time to respond to any kind of request because we were following exactly what the approved church does. But the legal environment was not clear enough. I mean, we have this lawsuit of Church of the Mother Earth in Florida that ended up closing down because of this civil lawsuit. And this was very, very complicated. I mean, applying for approval to the DEA in the middle of this church fighting the DEA, it was not the right thing according to our lawyers. So we just were waiting with our package to be submitted as soon as the legal environment cleared. But that never happened because I left the church, and I think they're going to do it when the DEA promised to the court to issue new guidelines, new procedures to follow when you apply for approval, and they never have issued those new procedures. So again, there's some sort of inaction, or for not calling sabotage, or trying to stop applications to come to the DEA. There's no process to follow the application process. There's no formal application process at this time. So as soon as that happens, probably this church and many others will apply, and hope to get approved. So that's basically the status today legally. I follow this very closely.
Yeah. And obviously now there's a lot more new entheogenic churches that are kind of springing up across the United States, and different ones have taken different degrees of filling out the paperwork. But as you point out, that it is a convoluted process. There aren't clear guidelines, and it is, obviously psychedelics are involved, so the DEA is involved, but it is about religion. So what does the Drug Enforcement Administration, what authority do they really have to regulate religious practice? So it's definitely a complex yet growing and ever more pertinent aspect of American society, because a lot more people are looking to claim religious freedom rights and exemptions through these, but it's not a straightforward process, it sounds like.
Right. That's true. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then, in turning to mushrooms, I think maybe you've already revealed a little bit of why. It's hard to import ayahuasca. Most places in the United States, you couldn't really grow it, so we can't really establish a viable cultivation here in North America. So if you want to work with entheogens that working with mushrooms is much easier in the sense that they're very easy to grow, it's very easy to maintain a supply, and don't have to deal with having to import things and then crossing borders and things like that. So it's a lot more available in that way. But I'm curious, were there other reasons why you decided in putting together this? I'm going to say it again: the shape, spiritual healing by astral parasite extractions program. Were there other reasons why you went to mushrooms for that, other than ayahuasca? Was there anything about mushrooms that you felt was particularly amenable to this kind of approach of how you wanted to work with it?
Well, it was a combination of factors. One was uh, the fact that I met this common friend, introduced me to this mushroom guy, because this guy is a Russian guy, very nice person, friend of mine, that I met with this common friend because he wanted to write the mushroom manifesto. So this common friend said, "You have to meet Julio. He wrote the ayahuasca manifesto, so he can tell you, the inside of how that happened and get you some inspiration about what happened to him." All right, cool. So I met this friend, and we have dinner, and then I talk about my experience with the ayahuasca manifesto. I just told about it,
yeah,
in big in overall aspects, and so we met and we talk and we chat and this and that. And then the second half of the dinner, I said, "Well, tell me about your mushrooms. I mean, you're going to write this manifesto. How do you practice? What you do with them? And you drink, you have groups, you have the retreats." So he started to explain me this protocol that we're practicing now. It was totally new to me. And it was basically speaking out parasites and demonic entities that we carry in the subconscious. And that caught my attention. I was already in my process of leaving the church, not for because I wanted to do mushrooms. I will have my differences with the church. So it was like a combination. It happened when we were having this thing. So it was like meant to be like that. And I want to look at it like that, So what happened was that in ayahuasca, I don't know if you know, in my books I talk about this syndrome that happens sometimes in ayahuasca. People get out of control, they get crazy. I mean, I call it in my book visionary intense release syndromes, VIRS. I coined that term in my book, Ayahuasca Wisdom, which I introduced the model of the psyche, quantum model of the psyche in my book. So I talk about VIRS. I mean, I've always been very, have this science approach to psychedelics. I try to put my scientific mind on it as much as I can. And I try to balance it with my spiritual guidance. So it's a fine art there. I try to balance both sides of my brain. But I observe over the years of work with ayahuasca, from time to time, let's say 1% or 2% of the people get out of control. They get crazy. I don't know if you have personal experience of knowing stories about it, but I have personal experience many times of people that get, and sometimes they get out of control physically, they get loud, and sometimes you have to tie them down, until the effects of the syndrome goes away. Mm-hmm. And then when they calm down, they take a hot soup, talk, and everything is fine. And the guy feels okay. He doesn't remember much of what happened. But I am the one in the church that was in charge of taking care of those cases.
Yeah.
So I look at them closely. I talk to them. I get them by the shoulders. Come on, slapping. What's going on? You talk to me. What's your name? And these guys are possessed. I mean, they're gone. They're not there. Somebody else is talking to me, or somebody else is enjoying the experience of living in that body in that moment. It's just I can sense that this is not the person that is there. So, but this is too complicated. I mean, I don't have the paradigm of reality to deal with that phenomena, and these are so rare that happens that, and the guy feels better later. So we move on and forget about it until next time that happens. So it's something that, yeah, happens from time to time, but we don't. Nobody knows about it. I talk to other shamans, to other facilitators, how they know about it. Yeah, that's true, but nobody have a clear explanation of what that happens. And it can happen to the people drinking on the first time, or it can happen to the people drinking on the 100th time. It can happen anytime to any person. I try to find a pattern of when that happens with my scientific mind, and I just gave up. It happens, and when it happens, we have to control the person. But when these guys start talking to me about parasites and demonic entities, wait a minute, that explains those cases that I have in my back pocket that I cannot make sense of. And I said, tell me more about that. And so he started telling more about it. And then I said, wow, so this person, it's a Russian guy, Pavel is his name, was doing ayahuasca ceremonies, mushroom retreats with this approach in Jamaica. Okay, Jamaica, because it's totally legal. Jamaica is a mushroom haven because there's no laws against the mushrooms. There's incredible mushroom growers there with white coats and labs and microscopes. I mean, they know how to grow mushroom because it's legal. So you buy the best strains in Jamaica. You know, it's incredible. We met a couple of growers, and this is they're at another level. But that's a side point. The point is that it was doing his clients, his participants of this retreat were Russian. He's a Russian-speaking guy. I have a community of in Russia, and well known in Russia. So Russians come to Jamaica and to do this first class from Moscow. They pay $10,000 for the treatment, and they come back very happy to Russia. And he invited me. Come on. I mean, you are prepared. You are an ayahuasca guy. You know what we're talking about. Come on. I invite you. So he was interested in a person like me with my background and my experience to experience that and give him my sincere opinion of what I think about it. And I went, he invited me to Jamaica. I went. But I say, I don't want to do it. I want to see you doing it to others. I was still, I'm going to be an observer. I want to see how you do it to others. I want to talk to them, how they feel after. I want to see everything. And then I decide if I do it. Okay, no problem. No problem. So I went, invited by him in these groups of a handful of Russians. And I interview everyone. There's a couple of them that spoke English, and they were gracious enough to translate to the other ones about the questions that I have for them. So I interview everyone through these two bilingual Russians. And so I met everything there. Okay, so I first the ceremony. I saw this retreat going and then, so I decided to do it because I saw with my own eyes how it was and the effects and all that. So I was very impressed. So a friend of mine, that was just after the psychedelic science conference in Denver last year that I attended with a friend of mine, another ayahuasca facilitator, and who is a friend of this Buddhist monk that I'm going to talk about in a minute. So that's how the story starts unfolding. So I say Manolo. Manolo is my friend, high school friend from middle school. I'm 68. So our friendship dates back to 55 years of friendship, uninterrupted. The kind that you trust with your life, that kind of friend. So he knows all my stories. I know all of his stories. So we know each other like nobody else. So so Manolo, I met this Russian guy. What? I want to do that. So let's do it. So I talked to my friend Pavel, and he agreed to do a private retreat for a handful of people brought by me, including me, Manolo, and a few other people. And we did it in Dominican Republic. It was not completely legal there, but we have it was something that we have the mushrooms and we have the facilities. It was a private, secluded place. Nobody knew about it, so we run the risk. I mean, it's okay. It's not that terrible in the Dominican Republic. So we did this retreat, and that's why we met, because the Russian needed an assistant, and Manolo, she's an ayahuasca facilitator. Uh, had this ayahuasca community in Dominican Republic, uh, and has another ayahuasca community in Mexico. He travels around. He's a great guy. So he asked this monk to assist the Russian because we want to drink these mushrooms. He needs an assistant. Please do it for him. And so we can do this, because without an assistant, he's not going to do it. He needs someone. And he said, tell me about it. So he told me about it. I said, what is that? Extraction of demons? Come on. No. Yes. The guy said, listen, he's an acupuncturist. Acupuncture in Dominican Republic for many years, highly experienced, many clients, and that's his main source of income. But Manolo or me or no one knew that he was a Buddhist monk. He practiced Buddhism in his privacy. But it happens that this guy was trained in the Tibetan monasteries and in Chinese monasteries on the ordained in the lineage of demonology. So he knows all the techniques. When the Russian knew that, what? This is the best assistant that I can have. So this guy was well trained in Tibet. And so his pictures, he showed me all his pictures and all the things. Wow, so we couldn't believe it. So it was also meant to be like that, you know. So I experienced the mushrooms. Manolo experienced the mushrooms, and a group of friends experienced the mushrooms in his protocol for the first time. It was about, I took first day, 10 grams of albino penis envy to start. So, boom, I have the most incredible experience in my life. And I have been drinking ayahuasca for 25 years.
Yeah.
So a curious item, I later, because what I removed that day in my first experience, you can always relate to the first experience. Like people that drink ayahuasca maybe forget the first experience. It's like, it's an imprint in your conscious. So my first experience, I removed this parasite that I was carrying from before I was born in my mother's womb. My mother wanted to abort me. Okay. So I have healed this with ayahuasca many years before. And ayahuasca showed me everything about my mother and about the intention of the abortion. And I cried. And ayahuasca is incredible. So I have this healing with ayahuasca about this thing that happened before I was born. Okay. So for me, it was a closed book, a closed chapter. Thank you very much. Ayahuasca is incredible. I healed this rejection from mother because for a moment she wanted to abort me, this kind of thing. So it's like spiritual healing, ayahuasca work,
Yeah.
But then I drink ayahuasca, mushroom for the first time, 10 grams of albino penis envy, and kaboom! With the techniques of this guy, he let me go to the deepest. Let's find the deepest thing that we can find. So he led me in the suggestion to come down, and I ended up in the womb of my mother again. And what I saw there was this parasite that my mother received, and I received it in the first 10 days of my conception. When she got pregnant and wanted to abort me, I got this demon. I got this parasite, and it was it's complicated. I could spend an hour explaining that, but I'm going to shorten. The point is that I removed that in that moment. Uh, I reconciled with my mother. I saw the demon dissolving with the love of me and my mother reconciling about this. I mean, it was an amazing. I cried a lot. I pee on my pants for the first time in my life. I mean, so so when it was over, uh, the assistants took me to the swimming pool. This is done in a very high end setting, uh, villa with all the, all the chef and all that, the spa kind of setting. And then after I got out of the swimming pool, how you doing? Feeling better? Yes. 3 more grams. You what? 3 more grams? Yes. Now you're gonna understand everything that happened. You wow, okay. They give me a glass of chaga, which is not psychedelic, to strengthen, and then drink the 3 grams. And kapoom, I saw all my life under the eyeglasses of this demon and how this demon was affected me all my life. And it has to do with my relationship with women in general. And I saw how I was feeling, how I was feeling guilty because my mother didn't want me to born, and I was born against the will of my mother. So I felt guilty. So I projected guilt in all women's my life, especially romantic relationships. I mean, I can go on and on, but I'm being very transparent, and I'm an open book. So, but so you understand, the point is that at the end, I realized how I was fundamentally changed, uh, uh, to the point that I ended up divorcing my wife.
Mm.
Right? Because the new reality was the new Julio, the new Jules that came out of that. It was unrecognizable, even by my wife. Uh, and the relationship distance and deteriorated, and we ended up amicably. I mean, we recognize that the mission in our lives was accomplished, mine in hers and hers in mine, and we friendly separated. But it was a product of that. In my perspective, she has another perspective. You have to ask her, but in my perspective, it was that. So it was a new me that my attitude and my relationship with the opposite sex changed fundamentally by removing these parasites that was affecting me since before I was born. I couldn't never saw it because I was always like that. I was born with it. So there was now before and after, so I can compare. So then I drink ayahuasca and complain to Mother Ayahuasca about, well, I'm drinking ayahuasca for 25 years and you never showed me this. What's wrong here? And then the mushrooms on the first shot showed me this incredible healing. So and she answered me wisely. That's another podcast because this can go on and on, brother. Yes. So that was the beginning, and then we did another retreat, and then we realized that we wanted to do this on our own paradigm of more therapeutic approach, because the Russian friend created this religion and a church of the mushrooms around that. And I was coming out of the ayahuasca church.
Yeah.
I already broke with the Catholic Church when I was a teenager. I mean, I'm fed up with churches and religions. So that was not for me. A mushroom church after coming out of a ayahuasca church. No. So I talked to him, and we talked to him, and he's okay with it. Go or do whatever you want. You're free. And we organized ourselves and decided that this is something that the world needs to know about. And we have done retreats for ourselves every time we can. And it's fantastic. We are new people, new persons, and we just want to share that with the world. That's basically how it happened.
Okay. Thank you for sharing all of that. So I have some comments and some questions to follow up on here.
Go ahead. Sure.
Okay. So going back to the work with ayahuasca. So one of the things that you pointed out was how sort of these quote unquote demonic possession and exorcism events relatively rare with ayahuasca. So they
Right.
do show up, but they're very unpredictable about
Right.
when it will show up and when it will happen. That kind of manifestation of energy and behavior, for example, is something that actually is quite common in the world of 5-MeO DMT. And that's where I have primarily worked in. And
Right.
where one of the ways that I like to describe it is that with enough power, which is 5-MeO DMT is like this ultimate energetic power, that what happens is the conscious part of the ego is just completely wiped out temporarily. And then when that happens, this stuff bubbles up from the unconscious. And very often it is events or decisions or things that have happened from way back in a person's life. And what can be surprising is that having counseled a lot of people in the 5-MeO world and worked with a lot of people is that a very common statement that is made if somebody had a lot of prior work with ayahuasca, they would kind of like you said that they would say, well, I thought I had reached the root of it. But then I had this event with 5-MeO where the conscious part was just completely gone. The conscious part of the ego is not there. So also, as you're saying, you can talk to people and they might even talk to you in a different voice during that time period, but then they won't have conscious recall of what occurred, but they do feel cathartically transformed. And then just as you're describing, sometimes people realize, oh, my relationship actually, that was based on an old wounded pattern that I was compensating for. So I like to say, like, the what I call non-dual energetic therapy with 5-MeO DMT, I say it's not couples therapy, first of all, because you might find out that your relationship is not what you thought it was. And this also where people do describe big changes of behavior, big changes in life choices. People leave jobs, leave relationships, things like that. So I'm really familiar with what you're describing here, but in the context of 5-MeO. So now returning to mushrooms, that you've described 10 grams.
So let me interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because what you're describing makes a lot of sense to me with the 5-MeO, because this power that you described, because I've done it with 5-MeO, and I know what you're talking about, and basically this is the role of the heroic dose, is that to removing the ego out of the equation, removing the observer of the experience.
Yeah.
So when you do consecutive heroic doses, you have a UFO-like experience. You are like not knowing what's going on. So this is what we want to accomplish with the heroic doses. It's the equivalent of having a powerful buffalo various experience, So it's the same, different agents achieving the same result of removing the ego of the equation, so that the deepest part can flourish,
right,
and manifest.
Yeah. So that was basically the anticipation of the question that I was leading up to, was that obviously what you're describing here, like 10 grams of mushrooms, like I think a lot of quote unquote therapeutic approaches to mushrooms right now are generally working within like the 3 to 5 gram range. And so this is like 2 to 3 times that amount. Right. And often this is an amount where, again, I work as an integration consultant. So people come to me with their difficult cases. And it's often the case if somebody's taken 10 grams of mushrooms, they're coming to me with like, I don't know what the fuck happened, right? It could be deeply disorienting for people. But often those are people who are doing it on their own, right? Not in the context that you're describing here. But it sounds like it is it's the super heroic dose, which doesn't just alter the ego, could potentially completely override and wipe out at least the most present structures of the ego, that observer that's always there, always analyzing, always asking, what about, what about, what about? And so this is the dose range, it seems like, we're effectively able to go beyond that, so that then these parasites that you're describing, they're so deeply embedded within the unconscious that the conscious mind is never, ever, ever, ever going to find them.
I agree. You got it, Martin. That's it. You hit it on the nail. Yes, that's it. This is what we have seen with this protocol, and you can perfectly relate because you are a facilitator or with those other medicine that achieves similar effects. Yes, fantastic, fascinating. Thank you for understanding.
Yeah,
it's refreshing to me to talk to someone that gets it that fast. Of course, because you are on the path. Of course, thank you.
Yeah. So then, by using this methodology, so going back now again to ayahuasca and mentioning that these kinds of deep level breakthroughs only happen rarely, through using this methodology and using this dosage level of mushrooms, it sounds like the efficacy of getting to these deep rooted unconscious stuff, it sounds like there's a lot more efficacy there, that it's far more accessible. And so that rather than the idea of, well, you might drink ayahuasca your whole life and maybe once or twice you'll reach this kind of level of transformative release, here through this methodology, it sounds like there's a much higher likelihood that this is going to occur. Now, I know within your brochure here that you also mentioned a lot about set and setting. That's not just the dose, but it's also the setting, and the approach itself. So here's where I'd kind of like to ask you about those elements, and then also with the direction of the Buddhist monk of how that works within the session itself to help direct people to enter fully into this level of experience where this level of transformation can take place.
Okay, well, the way you describe the 5 p.m. alcohol bufo experience where the ego is completely gone and people sometimes don't recollect everything that happened.
Right.
With this approach, the ego is not completely gone. I mean, you're mumbling and you are like out there, but you still you know what's happening, and you can interact with the facilitator. Hey, are you feeling? Oh, I'm feeling okay. I'm feeling this, and you are barely there, but you're there. Yeah. So, but enough of you to allow this with guidance to happen. So it's like a middle road of what you described, and not that deep, but deep enough to allow these energies to show up. And that's the fascinating part of this. So what happens is that, and then we do 4 consecutive sessions, right? Because one session is not enough. These things are so deep, okay, that you have to hammer them over and over, and to finally get this extraction that wow, there's a feeling of release. That's something out of you, and this brain reprogramming starts working immediately, and it starts reconfiguring into a new person. I mean, because that thing is no longer obstructing your normal brain work, because it's feeding from your vital energy, it's feeding from your life force, and it induces you to certain behaviors that produces the life force that the hamburger that they like to eat. And that's how they perpetuate their existence in you, and they're with you the whole life because you never know that they're there, and that's fascinating. So that's what I think is happening. That's my 10 cents of that.
Yeah, something I'd just like to comment on there is this idea of doing the 4 consecutive sessions. There's also a parallel within my own facilitation of 5-MeO, which I don't actively do anymore. But when I was doing it, I always emphasize the idea of we want to do 3 full doses of the medicine, because what we're emphasizing is that this is an energetic process, and we want to reach that point where you feel that sense of relief and that being grounded, where whatever it was that was difficult that arose, we want to make sure that it transforms out and releases. And so I've never been a fan of the one-off model of, okay, you've had a big experience, now go home and contemplate that. But it's actually, okay, that was step number 1. Let's keep going till you hit that point of feeling clear and complete and grounded. And it sounds like that's exactly the kind of model that you're using here.
Exactly, exactly. That's so refreshing to hear that. The parallels of on the two technologies is incredible. The way you were doing it and the way we're doing this. There's an incredible parallel. Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
That's how it works, in my opinion and your opinion. So we agree on this one.
Yeah. So to return to the Buddhist element, now in the brochure and on the website, it does kind of talk about sort of the synthesis of Jungian psychology and this Buddhist approach. And it's kind of an interesting marriage. Buddhist psychology is something that's been developed for thousands of years, and I think probably it's been the most fully developed and cultivated within the Tibetan tradition and the Vajrayana Buddhist tradition that has a very sophisticated.
There is Vajrayana techniques. Yes.
Yeah. So
exactly.
How do those get wedded together, and then how does that work in the context of the session itself, or is it more of framing in terms of prepping people for the experience and then helping people integrate and understand afterwards? Like, where does that come into play is what I'm really interested in.
It's the Jungian psychology is prepping. Yes. There's a previous, before the event, we have Zoom calls with participants, one-on-one, to prepare them with the shadow paradigm, which is a soft core demonic work, without mentioning demons or parasites. They're just shadow, okay, these parts of you, that right. This and that we all know about. So you can, in your consciousness, prepare yourself for the work that you want to do, for the work that you would like to get down. Because people that do this and are willing to do 4 consecutive ceremonies are people that have tried many things and they still feel that they haven't reached the level of healing that they're expecting. Yeah. I have tried ayahuasca, they have tried psychology, they have tried therapists, and still, so that person will prepare it. I mean, this is not for everyone. It's for this kind of people that, okay, I want to get to the bottom of this. When with this intention, okay, list what it is, this and that, smoking, whatever, this behavior, sexual, whatever. Let's open up. You have to open up to us. So we have this kind of conversation. Okay, so let's work with this, let's work with that. And the Jungian shadow work is the common language to establish this relationship and bonding with the participant. And once this is set, we talk about the parasite paradigm. Okay, so you can visualize that this is something that is in your subconscious. Is not. Then we start to work on intensively on demystifying the demon thing, because Hollywood movies have made terrible work in contaminating the conscious and the subconscious about what a demon is. There's not such a thing as the horns and these terrible Hollywood images. It's just this bundle of dark, intelligent energy that you created, or you absorbed, or resonated with you, and you have it attached. But it's a vibrational phenomenon. It's a quantum phenomenon. It's not that you were attacked and somebody got into you against your will. If you don't resonate with that, you're not going to get it. I mean, if you get something like that, it's because your behavior and your energy is resonating in that frequency. So we're getting now into this more frequency theory about demons or parasites, and not and try to demystify these images. So you can so we can remove the fear, because you talk about demons and oh my god,
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. Who wants to go to watch demons? My demons? No. So we have to work at it. No, it's not like that. So the problem to make this technology available or popular is that when, as soon as you mention demon or parasite, it's fear all over and you run. So you don't want to look at it. So yeah, that is a problem. So next stage is to demystify the demon thing. So you go to the ceremony without that. Like, all right, let's do this. So it's a lot of pre-work to go to the ceremony, and then experience the high dose, and then what happens is that, going more into the Tibetan part now, is that in that state, with that mindset that you are coming into the experience, you start sensing where you yourself, you start sensing where this parasite is, what it is. Because you don't have, your ego is nowhere to be found. It's at the soul level. That you're still aware, there's some ego there, but it's not analytical, it's just experiencing. Okay, this, and then you start feeling, oh, okay, oh, this is that, okay, you talk, listen, call the facilitator, let me tell you this, I saw this, I felt this memory came, and blah, blah, blah. Sometimes people stand up and confess terrible things that they from the soul level, they needed to get out. They never told anyone. Such a deep kind of experiences that are so healing and so healthy to get out. And then what happens is that they sense place in their body where that is located. Because these demons or these parasites or these frequencies are at the quantum level, your psyche, but they have a physical correspondence in your physical body. It's like a relationship, it's a connection. And you have, and it can locate and lodge into different organs. And you can feel it in the liver, you can feel it in your guts, or you can feel it in your heart, places, legs, places where this energy is more focused. When that happens, and we help the participant to do that work during the session, then the Tibetan techniques come into it. There's various elements. I'm not going to go into the details, but there's a ceremonial dagger that is called the furba, and you can Google that. It's an instrument, millenary, hundreds of years, that have lost meaning for most people. But in the Tibetan monasteries, they know exactly how to use it, and our monk, he was trained on how to use it. It has to do with your consciousness and the projection of the energy into the furba, and to pin down this energy in the organ. So it's PHURBA, furba. You can Google that and see all this diverse. You can buy them online, all that. But it's a symbolic ritual instrument that the monk is trained to locate the point. And then there's another extraction. One is located. There's another extraction technique that we describe that for people that are registered to the retreat. And then it is extracted, and we are convinced that this works because we ourselves have experienced it, and we see the faces of the people when they get rid of it. It's like, wow. It's so, and we just all smile because we saw it, that he just is gone. And then it comes the next phase of preparing this person to fill the void that this energy left. Because the neurology of these patterns of behavior that were bothering you is still there. The brain path the neural path. So you have to fill it with light, with love, with conscious work of changing that behavior, and and creating a new house around this area that this energy was located before. Because if you don't do your work, your patterns can continue and repeat themselves, and you invite another energy, maybe a brother or sister of that one that you removed, and you're back to square one. So because this a tendency to rebuild itself, so you have to do the work after, and that's why we do these calls 1 week later, a month later, checking and making sure. So it's a lot of pre-work, a lot of work, and a lot of after work. So yeah, it's an interesting, and it's complex. It's complex, but this is what we love to do now.
Yeah. Well, there's a number of things I'd love to comment on there. One is the emphasis that all of this, even though we're talking about something that is embedded deep within the unconscious, that it also is, very importantly, it's located somewhere in the body. That it's not floating around. It's not off in la la land.
So you also agree with that?
Yes, that it's always somewhere in the body, and that by accessing it through the body, that's where we get the transformation. But also in agreement with what you're saying is that we can relieve the pressure. We can reformat the energy. It gets released. You feel better. And as you say, if we're not also transforming the habits, the thought patterns, the beliefs, that over time, this is what I tell people with 5-MeO DMT. For example, I say, look, whatever's going on, it can help clean it out. But if you are not then consciously entering into your life with a new sense of personal responsibility, over time, you're going to take everything that just got removed and you're going to shove it back in there, and you're going to be right back where you were. So that, yes, there is quote unquote magic in the healing, but you also need to then be attentive to transforming whatever behaviors or beliefs or ideas had grown up around that, especially since most of this stuff is things that we've been living with our whole lives. We've built our whole thought system, our whole identity system around these patterns. And that's where, if we really want to embrace the potential to be somebody new, that we actually do have to be somebody new, because we don't just want to fall back into the old patterns. And just kind of reflecting on your own experience that you had and your own life history, I want to ask you this question, that what I like to identify as kind of at the core of all of this healing and transformation is finding the courage and the ability to love ourselves unconditionally. And that with you, with this issue with your mom wanting to have an abortion, that it kind of embedded this sense of guilt or being unwanted or unwelcomed, which then informed your entire concept of what love was, what your sense of self-worth was. And by finally finding this peace and letting it go, you're entering into a new state of self-love and self-acceptance. But then that it does lead to different relationships, right? Because, maybe my relationship with my wife was actually built on this wound of compensating. And so now we can dissolve it amicably, but because it doesn't serve anymore. It's not feeding the wound anymore. So I see you nodding vigorously, so I'll let you respond to that.
Yes, well, I mean, you hit it again. I mean, this is it. Yes, you're totally right. The relationship was built on that one, and again, when that one was healed, it was time to move on. She was my marriage was my teacher of showing me in the mirror what I have to realize, and it took me a massive amount of mushrooms to finally realize it, and it was and the healing came. And I will always be grateful for that. But going back what you were saying about the habits and all that, the way that I like to describe it to the participants after the retreat is that with the words of entity and identity. Okay, what happens is that in your life, these entities step into your identity. and you think that you are that, and you are not that. So you have to be a surgeon with your scalpel and dissect the entity from your identity and split and remove the entity from your identity, recognizing what you are, what your true self, a son of God, a being of light, love, and anything that is not that is identity, is the entity. So your identity is pure love, and your entity is all other things that you want to get rid of. And with this playing with wordplay, it's very effective in explaining the work that need to be done.
Yeah, yeah. So now with these retreats, these they're not just open to anyone. That there's an application process. Could you tell us a little bit about that? And you've already kind of mentioned that.
This,
Go ahead.
Of course. Yeah, of course. Yes. Well, as you can see, this is not for everyone. I mean, if you are scared about the unknown, if you don't want to, I mean, because there's these people that want to heal, okay, but they come to the healer with the idea that the healer is going to heal.
Yeah, fix me.
Like, fix me. Okay, how much it is? 5,000, 10,000. Here it is. Get me well. I mean, take a Tylenol and get me off this headache. You know, and so if we see that this is where you're coming from, we'll reject you. I mean, we're not going to help you. I mean, we don't want to waste. We only take 7 people per retreat because it's 3 facilitators for 7 people, and plus assistants. So it's very valuable space because the work that is going to be done is high quality. So I don't want anyone there that is not going to get the benefits or is just going to sabotage the other 6. I want to make sure that you are a warrior, that you really want to do this, and you want to do whatever it takes to get where you want to go, because it's you that's going to go. I just holding you by the hand, so you heal yourself with the mushrooms, with your higher self, with your love, with your God. So that's one rejection right there. So there's another ones that are mentally unstable. I mean, we have to identify people that are inclined to psychosis and to, bipolar, but mild is fine. But if it's too strong, I have a record, psychiatric record. I pass. I mean, and I explain that this is not for you. And several other categories that we have in the screening process. We just want to make sure that you're going to get maximum benefit of this. It's not a thing about a club or exclusivity or anything like that. It's for your own good. We want to make sure that you don't do something that you should not be doing. So basically that is the concept of the screening process for us.
Yeah, and within the practice itself, I'm just imagining that this is probably a bit more visceral than people might expect from the retreat experiment. And I know that for a lot of ayahuasca retreats, there's kind of the emphasis like, don't disturb your neighbor, make sure you're quiet, be contained. But this sounds like it's more of actually inviting the big cathartic releases, which usually are not quiet, are not contained, they're not really pretty, really.
Right. Yeah. True. And we don't even go into those explanations, because even if I say don't disturb your neighbor, I mean, there's nothing you can do. You're going to disturb your neighbor. So I don't want to waste your time saying those instructions, because you're not going to follow them.
Yeah. And then you've already mentioned a little bit about checking in with people afterwards. So in terms of follow-up care and integration, how does that work within the program?
Well, there's integration every day. I mean, the next morning, there's a group integration, and we record, with your approval, the integration. And with this technology, AI transcribes. And that same day, I send you what you said in the integration session.
Yeah.
So you can read what you said in the morning and reflect on it in your privacy of your room. So we do that every day. after the next day after each session. And then the last day, I mean, there's 4 consecutive sessions, and then there's the last day that we don't have a session. And it's like a relaxation. We don't want you to go to the airport that day, right? It's that day off, but you just have great meals. We go to the swimming pool or to the beach, and we take a bond with the other participant, exchange phone numbers. Some of them become friends forever because it's like going to war together. And,
Yeah.
you come back from Iraq, and you always be like, that's always be your friend, that kind of thing. So that day is plus one-on-one integration. I mean, but more informally, like hold it by the arm, come in, I have this question, Julio, this, that. And then, okay, we talk about it, and we bring the monk or bring my Manolo, with address the issue on a group basis, whatever, but it's individual. And that's the last day. And it's like to decompress and to enjoy, because at that day is a celebration. All of them are like, wow, it's like this moment for enjoyment and doing nothing and enjoying the moment. And, plan ahead what's going to happen when you come back home, start sending messages. It's a transition period to come back to the world. And then airport the next day, and then sessions, Zoom sessions, a week later and a month later.
Great.
And I'm always available at any time, 24/7, for any call that any participant wants to do. So you don't need to wait to the integration session in the online. You just grab your phone and call.
Yeah. Hey. Well, Julio, I think we've kind of gone through it all now, and so this is the point of the interview where I like to ask my subject: is there anything that I didn't ask you about do you think is important still to communicate around this program? And I just want to share the website again for anybody listening. It's shape-my.life. And that's where you can get access to information about this program that Julio is offering. But is there anything that we didn't talk about that you think is important to bring up before we wrap it up?
This has been the most amazing interview, because I've been this interviewer, just knows exactly what I'm talking about. So this has been like a interaction of both sides. And you're not an interviewer. I'm in the interview. I mean, I feel like talking to a friend that knows what I'm talking about. So we just covered everything that I wanted to cover. Thank you very much. That was amazing.
Well, beautiful.
People, your listeners have an idea of what it is. You give them the website. If they want to get there and get more information, and drop us an email. There is something that maybe I want to invite you to do it. Jamaica. Yeah. What about that?
Maybe we can do that at some point. Yeah.
All right. So this is something that you are totally deserve to have this kind of experience. Being an experience of a BUFO facilitator is another angle that you would probably enrich your life with that. But just an idea. All right. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Julio. And let's remind the audience, you do have at least one book, maybe 2 books available. What are the books that are out there that they can find on Amazon?
On Amazon, there's Ayahuasca Wisdom, personal healing through a quantum model of the psyche. This is a book that is everything that I know about ayahuasca and entities. There's chapters about entities with ayahuasca that are now perfectly applicable to the mushrooms. So there's 145 topics that you can read modularly. You don't have to go sequentially. And it's a very fascinating book, very packed and compressed with a lot of information. And the other one is Ayahuasca Unveiled, which is resolving unresolved issues with the departed and the unborn. So what happens is it's 25 short stories with a theory about how that happens in the last chapter of the book. about people that during ayahuasca sessions connect with a family member that have passed away. And normally when that happens, it resolves, and it resolves something that was pending when these people pass away. And a lot of cases also, the souls of the unborn babies in case of abortions or miscarriages, or babies that die early in the first year of life, they come back to talk to their mothers and their fathers in the ayahuasca sessions. And there's 25 beautiful short stories. There's one story, this story number 7, that is my personal story. All the names are changed to protect the persons, including my story is changed. But there are, all of them except one are stories that I have experienced personally in my sessions of ayahuasca. So these are first accounts that people tell me, sometimes right after the ceremony, and I ask for permission to tell a story around it. Story number 7 is about my personal story that has to do with the soul of my little brother that passed away when I was 9. My little brother of 4 passed away, and this some years later, this was a mentally retarded. I don't know if it's politically correct to say that today. Baby boy. I mean, so he never talked, spoke to anyone, and he was always on the floor of my living room. He never walked either. And then every time I pass around him, I play with him. Although he was my little brother, he laughed and giggled him and all that. But he always grabbed my leg. This is why when I passed by, it was his way of calling my attention. Yeah. So years later that he passed, I went to this clairvoyant, these psychics that was reading me. And she said, I see a little boy hanging from your leg, a soul of you. Really? I never paid attention to that. But then in this ayahuasca ceremony with my teacher shaman in Dallas in 2012, my little brother came. He was attached to my leg. He has spent there over 50 years hanging from my leg. And it was that night that he talked to me for the first time and released this pain that he was holding, that he needed to release to his brother, me, before he can move on spiritually. And he did, and he moved on spiritually. He was able to detach himself, but he needed to tell me this secret that he had, because he never could speak. And it was about this sexual abuse that he suffered as a child, that he was suffered a lot. He could never tell anyone because he was mentally retarded. So he told me, and then he left. That's a beautiful story. So this is one of the 25 stories. Yeah. So that's the second book, and the third one is the Ayahuasca Manifesto, which is a booklet. You can Google online and download it free.
Yes, and it's available now in multiple languages.
Yes. That's been incredible, because people that read it in English, all these translations have been free. There have been bilingual people that read it in English, and they write to me offering to translate it, because it has to be in Italian, it has to be in French. I had to tell my French friends. So they translated it, and I published it in the new language, and so far 8 languages.
Yeah. So you can find that online, and it is kind of a complicated website. So it'd probably just be best just look up Ayahuasca Manifesto and find it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Julio, it's been just amazing getting to know you and to have this conversation with you. Thank you so much for everything that you've shared, and just sounds like excellent work that are happening at these shape retreats that you're running in Jamaica. And I look forward to additional conversations and connections with you through the future.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Martin. That was a great opportunity and a privilege to be part of your podcast. Thank you very much.
All right.